Prepare to have your mind blown as we delve into the complexities of relationships, explore the cutting edge of science, and celebrate the bizarre and beautiful absurdity of the world around us. This is The Last Show with David Cooper.
If you like certain kinds of movies, like horror or action or drama, you might have certain personality traits. At least that's according to science. It's science for your ear holes. It's the Rogerson Report. We are joined by Professor from York University, Jesse Rogerson, to give you all the science news that you probably are going to care about. Jesse, welcome to the show.
Hey, David. Thanks for having me back.
Oh, you sound really good. Did you get a new microphone?
I got this beautiful new mic. Thanks. Yeah, someone really cool recommended it to me.
It was me. Wow, really piercing behind the veil here. The boring parts of radio, microphones. The not so boring parts of radio, the fascinating science stories. Okay, I like dramas. I like comedies. I cry at pretty much every movie. Don't judge me. What does that say about me according to science?
I was actually just going to ask you that exact question. What kind of favorite movies do you have? And what, because there's some things that it might be able to tell. Now, the study they did here, before I get to what movies tell about you, David, is the study is they took 300 actually college kids in India. This is an Indian study, aged 20 to 23, but they're fluent in English. And they asked them basically, rank your favorite type of movie. And this is like adventure, drama, comedy, romance, horror, and mystery. So 6 types of movies. And then they ranked them. And then they also got them to do this personality test based on the big 5 personality traits, specifically extroversion, agreeableness, conscientiousness, neuroticism, and openness to experiences. So
why is there one bad one in there? Neuroticism. Also, I feel like that one's me because I'm worried that it's me. Does that mean if you're worried about being neurotic, does that mean you're neurotic? That's a question for science.
They were just trying to control for you specifically in this study. That's what they were aiming to do. Yeah.
All right.
So they did this, and they found, first of all, David, anybody who said that they liked all kinds of movies, they immediately excluded from the study. So if you're like watching all of these kinds of movies, then you're not really helpful in this study.
That's like when you say, what kind of music do you like? I like everything. Shut up. Get out of here. You're not invited to our study.
There's definitely one type of music you don't listen to, and you're just lying about it, right? So for me, horror films are ones that I don't mind watching, but I really, really don't choose them for me.
Me neither.
So I wouldn't watch all of these often. Anyway, what they found is that there are correlations that in the ranks that you give for types of movies versus your personality type, there's things that correlate. For example, adventure films goes with extroversion. And negative associations with conscientiousness and neuroticism. So if you're super into that neurotic side of yourself, you're probably not watching a lot of adventure films, like big action films, right?
So if I start watching like Indiana Jones and the Expendables and stuff, will it cure my neuroticism, or did this paper not find a causal link like that?
That is such a great question, talking about how science works. And no, there's no causation associated here. It's correlation between the two. One can tell you the other.
So I can't force myself to watch movies I don't like to become a better person.
Well, I would say is that the study does not answer that question, although that is a really interesting scientific question and one that could be explored if you set up your experiment properly. Just subject people to the movies they hate.
Let's do it at the commercial break. Okay, so adventure associated with more positive personality traits, extroversion.
You said you were into drama and what?
Sci-fi is probably my number one, which I don't think they categorized here.
No, they didn't.
But maybe drama. Yeah,
drama and comedy, right?
I like comedies. I don't actually love comedies, but I like them. I like them.
Here's an interesting conclusion that came from it is that there's no meaningful relationship from comedy watchers to personality types. So basically everybody watches comedy. But the thing that I found, sort of what I suspect here, is that there is a very large range of comedic style, right? And they didn't control for like slapstick versus punny versus like edgy, weird comedy. Like there's a wide range, political comedy, sort of offensive comedy, right? There's a ton of different types of comedies that I think would track with personality type, but they just said comedy. So I think that if you could get into the sort of subtleties of genre, you might find something. Overall, they found, yes, there's correlations between the big 5 personality types and the types of movies people choose. And there's some really interesting things to go look in after that. They actually even said this might be something that could be used for hiring practices and screening, suggesting like when you're doing a job interview, you ask them what type of movies they like, which I think
Wild.
is a dangerous precedent.
Yeah, and then like figuring out what your psychological traits are and then discriminating against you based on it. I don't know about that.
It sounds terrible. So the study did mention that, and I think that's just a crazy overreach, but it's an interesting study nonetheless.
All right. Well, I like drama best of the categories they looked at. I think that means that I am.
You're at higher levels of conscientiousness and neuroticism, and you have lower levels of extroversion. Are you extroverted, David?
I'm a little bit. Yeah, I'm a little extroverted.
A little bit.
I do
Well,
talk
I like
to
to think
strangers a lot.
humans are not one-dimensional, right? We can have lots of personality traits.
All right, let's go to this next study. Kind of interesting that when I think of fertility rates, I usually associate them with age, maybe health, but not my current romantic status. But a new study finds there is a link between that and your fertility, which is kind of wild that like some social circumstance of your life can affect it. Or am I getting this all wrong?
Almost not the distinction there is that it's not fertility rate, it's fertility desire. How much do you actually want to have kids, David? If you want to have kids,
I messed that one up. It's fine. What I said was, you said rate, I said desire.
And your romantic partner, your status, your Facebook status, you remember that, your Facebook status can actually inform what you think about what you want. So what they did for this study is it's a really cool study because they took a bunch of people aged 20 to 49 years old and followed them over a very long period of time, 2009 to 2023. That's a very long period of time, years. And they followed them through their ups and downs of relationships. This was in Japan. And they asked them, as they were going through relationship changes, how did this affect whether or not they wanted kids? And so they categorized them by wanting kids, not sure, and not wanting kids. And they found that when you change your relationship status to not with someone, either not married or not cohabitating or just not in a relationship at all, there's actually a huge spike in changing your mind from wanting to being unsure. So just your relationship status actually affects, or at least correlates with, what you think you want out of life. And having kids is a huge decision. So the reason this is interesting is because it finds is that you might not actually have a clear picture of what you want until you've gotten into or out of a relationship, and it will affect that choice. So you want to be careful about making those hard decisions until you've had like all the facts about yourself, I think.
If you know a young person with ADHD, there's something that they can do, pretty simple, to help them manage stress. We're here with Jesse Rogerson, a professor at York University, to talk science news. Jesse, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So, exercise. Is it good for you? I hear the jury's out on that one, just like it is with smoking and alcohol.
Some doctors, I guess, say it, but I guess not all. No. Yes, of course, exercise is good for you for like cardiovascular health, for like just general health. But there's something deeper going on here. And this was all about adolescents that have ADHD. Now, there's been some work done on this for children, for young ones with ADHD. But this study was saying, okay, when a young person has ADHD and moves into that adolescent portion of their life, they're hit with so much more that's going on. There's your school life, social world, there's social media. Like, there's a lot of stuff that's happening in that transition period. They're more prone to anxiety, depression. How do we intervene with these young people with ADHD that's characterized by like inattentiveness and like hyperactivity to bring their stress levels down, bring their anxiety levels down, and sort of biologically work on their cortisol levels, which goes with stress. So what this study did was say, okay, let's do an intervention with physical activity, but on the short term. So they took two groups of students, both had ADHD. They did one group of those students do a physical activity twice a week for 3 weeks, and the other group did normal routines as a control. And they found they would survey the groups of students as well as take saliva samples to measure cortisol levels throughout the process. They found that those that were doing more physical activity, and not just like exercise, but like problem solving, teamwork, all that stuff, not sitting at a desk. When they did that, they both self-reported less stress, self-reported less anxiety, but physically their system, their biological system was producing less stress, correlating with their cortisol levels. So it was like quick intervention. This is an easy thing to do. And it was clearly better than the students that were not doing any of that intervention. So great. Physical activity, good for students with ADHD.
What's wrong with that? Telling kids who have ADHD, suggesting they go for a run every few days? I feel like that's so easy.
And working with people too. It's so easy. You could go for a run. You could play a team sport. You could literally just go to the park with your friends and throw a Frisbee around. Like, it's low barrier, right? But one of the interesting parts about this study was that they tracked them for 3 months after the intervention had happened. And they basically found that the entire effect faded. Meaning, if you don't keep doing the intervention, then you are losing the effect and your stress levels go back to the same and your anxiety goes back up. So this informs clearly that, on a home front, parents should be working with their children, with their adolescents, to have something more consistent. But I think this also speaks to school, the way we set up school, and ensuring that groups of students like this, or just all students, have access to not let what would not seem like an academic thing, have access to physical activity, problem solving with your friends, just doing things that wouldn't seem like sitting at a lecture and listening to a math lesson. That's not always going to be the right thing to do in a school setting. You need to get them doing physical things as well.
Cool. Well, I want to jump to our last story here. You are an astronomer. You are a physicist. You are an astrophysicist. You study astrophysical sciences at York University. Is there more ways to say that? This is an astronomy story, and it's a really cool one. And I suppose people who are like conspiracy theory, whatever, could say it's proof of aliens, which is kind of fun. Obviously, it's not. But there was a time when humanity had no satellites in the atmosphere. Like, not that long ago. When did the Russians first launch something up there? Like the 40s, the 50s, something like that?
1957?
Sputnik wasn't?
Yep.
Yeah. Now, were governments testing things that were classified before then? Who knows? And that could come into play in a second. But we do have photographs of the sky, old photographs on like silver plates or whatever, like on photographic plates.
On glass, yeah.
On glass. So we have historical photographs of the sky. We have amazing computer technology to analyze those historical photographs of the sky. And we had a time when there was allegedly no satellites in the sky. So some researchers took these old photographs, looked at them, and tried to look for things streaking across the sky, like the International Space Station would be an example, stuff that couldn't be stars. And what they found was kind of interesting.
They found that there are some. That's the crazy thing. So this is from a researcher out of Sweden, Dr. Beatrice Villarol, who's doing some interesting stuff. She focuses mostly on the Palomar survey. The Palomar survey happened out of the Palomar Observatory just outside of San Diego. Big, huge observatory that was built a long, long time ago. And it decided back in like the 40s that it wanted to take an entire image snapshot of the sky. So you do it in small sections. You point your telescope, you take a picture, you move it over a bit, you take another picture, and over a few years, you'll get an entire shot of the sky. And they did that, and they did it multiple times. So we had multiple images of the entire sky at once. What that means is that you can go to a region of the sky and compare what's there over 5, 6, 7 nights over a period of maybe 5 years or something like that. And they find things. They find what we call transients. Astronomers call them transients. A transient thing is a thing that appears in one image but is not there in another image. It could be a physical thing, like a blinking star, like a supernova, or it could be an artifact of photography, like an accident, just a crappy data, or in modern day, it could be a satellite that's flying through your image. And the question that this researcher had was, do those happen in old ones? And they do. They found transients in old images before things were in the sky, some of which they found hard to explain. But then this researcher went a little bit further and said, are there any things on the ground here on Earth that we were doing during the 40s and 50s when this survey was happening that might have caused these transients? And they looked into nuclear testing, above ground nuclear testing. And they found, this is a really interesting result that should get us thinking, but it's not necessarily a causation. So we'll get to that in a second. They found that when you have a transient in the data of that survey I was talking about, that is, you're 45% more likely to be within a day of a nuclear test.
Could have been rocks or some material that got ejected or something like that.
So that's my question. This is what I tell my students all the time at school, is that, to do science well, you need to have a good physical mechanism to cause the thing that you're trying to describe. And so we have a flash of light that looks like a star in an astrophysical image from a telescope. And how does a nuclear test cause a flash of light that looks like a star? Personally, I don't have a good answer for that at the moment. But the fact that they line up, that they correlate, is telling us that there's questions we should answer in that direction. So I think they found an interesting result. They've just got no physical mechanism that I think is plausible at the moment. Of note, though, David, if you're a fan of aliens, is that they also found that this correlated with the number of UFO reports that happen. So nuclear test happens, and then an actual significant chance that there's going to be more UFO reports and more transients in the astronomical data. So I think that at least some of the transients and at least some of the UFO reports may have been caused by nuclear testing by those big nations back in the 40s and 50s.
We just don't know the mechanism yet, but it's pretty cool. And it's also cool that they really checked it for dust or errors in the photographic plates to really rule out whether it was just nonsense in the photographic data. Jesse, thank you for coming on the show. It is always a pleasure having you here.
I love being here. Thanks for that.
Jesse Rogerson is a professor at York University in Toronto, Canada.